Welcome to Oculus of the wise. There is a version of you they were counting on, smaller, quieter, desperate enough to fit. And when that version never showed up, something in them cracked that they still cannot explain. Let that land for a second, because here is the part nobody is saying out loud. The people who spent months trying to monitor you, diminish you, talk over you, and talk about you did not walk away winning. They walked away changed. Not the way they planned, not the way their handlers promised. They walked away haunted. By you, by what they saw when they got close enough to see the truth, by the unbearable realization that the target they were sent to break was the most unbreakable thing they had ever stood next to. And tonight, we are going to break down exactly why, point by point, no filler, no performance. Just truth. If you have never subscribed to this channel, do it right now before we go any further, because what you are about to hear is not content. It is a mirror, and once you see yourself clearly in it, you are going to want to stay. Number one, you are not too much. They are just unused to someone who refuses to be less. You are not too much. They are just unused to someone who refuses to be less, and there is a difference that most people spend their entire lives too afraid to name. When you stopped shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, you did not become arrogant. You became inconvenient. You became the person in the room who could not be managed, guilt-tripped, or slowly carved down into a version of yourself that was easier to dismiss. And that inconvenience, that is what they called a problem. Social psychology research consistently shows that people react with hostility not to intelligence itself, but to intelligence that makes them aware of their own stagnation. In other words, you never had to say a word. Your existence was enough to start the reaction. You walked into rooms carrying depth, and depth has a way of exposing everything hollow underneath it. They built their confidence on group approval, borrowed opinions, and recycled humor. And then you walked in, someone who did not need the chorus, someone who did not chase the validation, someone who simply was, and the room tensed up. Not because you threatened anyone, because you reminded them of the standard they quietly abandoned. You reminded them that small talk cannot fill a spiritual void. That laughter built on someone else's embarrassment is not joy. It is fear with a punchline. They will call you intense, difficult, hard to read. What they mean is they cannot control you, and that is not your problem to fix. That is your power to protect. Number two, your intelligence is not just mental. It is moral, and that is the kind that scares people the most. Your intelligence is not just mental, it is moral, and that is the kind that scares people the most. Because moral intelligence cannot be faked, performed, or rehearsed. It shows up in how you move, in what you refuse to laugh at. In the silence you hold when everyone else is eager to pile on. In the way you can read a room, not by what people are saying, but by what they are working very hard not to feel. You can sense manufactured kindness. You know the difference between someone opening up and someone setting a trap. You detect spiritual dishonesty before it finishes forming a sentence. And here is the part that unravels people. You do not even call it out. You just do not fall for it. And that calm non-reaction, that quiet refusal to be baited, hits them harder than any confrontation ever could. They cannot guilt-trip you. They cannot gaslight you. They cannot flatter you into lowering your guard. Their entire toolkit bounces off. And in a world that rewards performance over truth, someone who sees through the performance is not just inconvenient, they are dangerous. They call you suspicious, cold, impossible to read. You call it discernment, and you are right. Number three, you are not antisocial, you are anti-pretense. And that distinction costs them everything. You are not antisocial, you are anti-pretense. And there is a difference that takes most people decades to understand, if they ever do at all. You are not avoiding people. You are avoiding the hollow version of connection that passes for belonging in most rooms. The gossip disguised as honesty, the cruelty disguised as banter, the group that bonds by picking a target and calling it fun. You know what that is: emotional cannibalism, people feeding their insecurity by consuming someone else's dignity. And the moment you stop participating, the moment you sit in silence while everyone else is laughing at someone's expense, you become the mirror no one wanted in the room. You do not lecture them, you do not sigh loudly, you just do not laugh. And somehow that silence says everything. They call you uptight, distant, too sensitive. What they really mean is that you make cruelty uncomfortable, and you should take that as the compliment it is. You have reached a place where meaningless interaction feels heavier than solitude, where a quiet room with honest air beats a crowded table built on performance. That is not withdrawal, that is self-respect. You stopped paying emotional rent in spaces that never intended to shelter you. Number 4, every person sent to watch you ended up watching themselves. Every person sent to watch you ended up watching themselves. And that is the part they never prepared for before they ever laid eyes on you. They were handed a story. You were unstable, untrustworthy, a threat to the order of things. That story was their permission slip. It let them do things they never would have done to someone they saw clearly, and then they spent time observing you. They watched you get up every day under pressure most people would have collapsed under. They watched you move through your routines with dignity when breaking down would have been completely understandable. They watched you treat strangers with patience they could not explain. And something started to shift. Not in you, in them. Because when a person's direct experience contradicts the story they were given, the conscience does not stay quiet. It starts building a case. Day by day, your steadiness worked like a truth serum they had not agreed to take. The reports they filed started echoing back to them in their own heads. This person is not what we said they were. This person does not deserve this. They could not say it out loud, but the thought was already there, multiplying in the dark. And once that seed takes root, no assignment is strong enough to kill it. They wanted to see you crack. What they saw instead was themselves, and what they saw was unbearable. Number 5. You terrify people who run on ignorance the way an engine runs on fuel. You terrify people who run on ignorance the way an engine runs on fuel, because the moment you enter a system built on confusion and collective unawareness, your clarity does not just disrupt it, it exposes it. You see through the manipulation, you recognize the game before the first piece is moved, and the people who depend on that game for their power cannot stand it. Not because you are aggressive, not because you are confrontational, because you are calm. They are used to winning through confusion, through chaos, through emotional pressure applied at just the right angle. And none of those tools work on you. You have seen too much, evolved too far, become too grounded in your own awareness for their standard toolkit to make contact. And without someone to manipulate, they lose more than an argument. They lose relevance. They lose the illusion that what they are doing is necessary. You did not seek that confrontation. Your very presence created it, because truth naturally disturbs everything built on falsehood. They call you rebellious, difficult, arrogant, not because you are, because they cannot deceive you, and that one fact costs them everything they built their power on. Now pause right here. If this is resonating with something you have been living quietly for longer than you want to admit, drop the word aligned in the comments right now. I read every single one, and every person who does that is doing more than engaging with a video. They are signaling to the universe and to this community that they are ready, that they see it, that they refuse to keep shrinking. Do not scroll past that. Do it now. Number 6. Their compensation started out feeling like a reward. It ended up feeling like a confession. Their compensation started out feeling like a reward. It ended up feeling like a confession. At the beginning, it was easy to justify, easy money, a low-risk arrangement, maybe even a little exciting, extra income for what felt like a routine job. They bragged about it quietly. Some of them even felt powerful, like they had access to something most people did not. But the human conscience is not a vault, it leaks. Every dollar they accepted became harder to spend without thinking of what it represented, what they had done to earn it, who they had agreed to become in the process. They went home with heavier pockets and a heaviness they could not name. Lying awake at night, the money no longer felt like security, it felt like evidence, a receipt for moral compromise. Some of them tried the old excuses, I was just following orders. Everyone does it. It is not that serious, but those phrases started sounding hollow even inside their own heads. And meanwhile, their lives grew restless, relationships frayed, sleep became a stranger, a general sense of being off, of something pressing against their chest they could not locate or remove. The payment had become a contract with something dark, and contracts with darkness always come due. That is not superstition, that is cause and effect playing out at a frequency most people are too distracted to observe. Number 7. Their anonymity shattered the moment you saw them spiritually. Their anonymity shattered the moment you saw them spiritually. They had been promised invisibility-coded identities, layers of distance between their actions and their accountability, that invisibility was their armor. It let them participate in something they never would have agreed to with their name and face fully exposed. But then something happened that no briefing had prepared them for. You looked at them, not a glance, not a reaction, a recognition, the kind that does not need words. The quiet acknowledgement in your eyes that said, I see you, I know what this is, and who you are inside of it. And that moment, that single moment of being spiritually perceived, stripped every layer of cover they had spent months constructing. They were not hidden anymore. They were known, not as operatives. As human beings making a choice they could no longer pretend was neutral. There is a kind of seeing that bypasses all the systems people build to stay unseen. It cannot be argued with. It cannot be disproven. It is energetic. It is real. And it is the only confrontation they had no training for. After that, many of them lowered their gaze when you crossed paths. Some switched assignments. The mask was not just broken, it was gone. And without it, the only thing standing between them and the truth of what they were doing was themselves. Number 8. Your detachment is a superpower, so complete it looks like a threat. Your detachment is a superpower, so complete it looks like a threat. Because most people operate on the assumption that everyone needs something from them, their approval, their inclusion, their attention, their acceptance. That assumption is the invisible currency of social control. And when someone walks through that system needing none of it, the whole economy collapses. You stopped chasing belonging, not because you are cold, not because you stopped caring about people, but because you learned the difference between belonging and self-erasure. You learned that some circles do not want your presence, they want your compliance. And you stopped offering compliance like it was the price of admission to a life worth living. They mistake your independence for superiority. They read your self-sufficiency as arrogance. But what they are actually reacting to is freedom. A freedom that reveals, by contrast, how thoroughly they are still owned by other people's opinions. You are fine eating alone, working alone, growing alone, and that defies everything they were taught about how self-worth is supposed to work. In a culture where popularity equals proof of value, Your quiet self-possession looks dangerous. You are not superior. You are sovereign. And the insecure have no category for that. Number 9. Your daily life preached a sermon that dismantled the entire narrative built against you. Your daily life preached a sermon that dismantled the entire narrative built against you. Not with arguments, not with exposure, not with a single word directed at the people watching, just by existing the way you exist. Every morning you got up and moved through your day with discipline. Every interaction where you chose grace over retaliation. Every moment where you stayed consistent when inconsistency would have been completely forgivable. They had been promised chaos. They were supposed to find instability to report. Instead, they found someone who operated like a lighthouse, steady, unmoving, indifferent to the storm happening around them, and they could not produce the evidence the assignment required. Every trap they set came back empty. Every attempt to provoke a reaction that would justify their presence landed in silence. It was like trying to start a fire with wet wood. The sparks kept dying in their hands. Some of them started to admire you privately, in the places they would never admit out loud. Others began to resent their own weakness. Suddenly aware that the strength they were sent to destroy was the very strength they had spent their whole lives wishing they possessed. But the outcome was the same for all of them. You were no longer the target. You had become the standard, the measure of what they had traded away, and that is a loss no paycheck can cover. Number 10. They were never just watching you. The real operation was watching them. They were never just watching you. The real operation was watching them. They entered the assignment believing they held the power, the information, the access, the inside angle. That belief was the bait. And they took it completely. What they did not realize until it was far too late was that the same system monitoring you was monitoring them just as closely, testing their loyalty, measuring how far they would go, staging scenarios to gauge their compliance, tracking their hesitation. Instructions they thought were private got repeated back to them word for word. Conversations they believed were off the record resurfaced in their supervisors' mouths. Assignments changed without explanation in ways that told them unmistakably that every move they made was already known. The watchers were being watched. The hunters were on a leash, and the perks and promises that had felt like power were actually the cost of their own freedom. They thought they were on the inside. They were the inside of a trap. Once they understood that, the secrecy that once felt thrilling started to feel like suffocation. The access that felt exclusive started to feel like exposure. They were not trusted partners. They were disposable instruments in a machine that would replace them without ceremony the moment they stopped being useful. And that realization, being simultaneously the hunter and the hunted, was the breaking point that drove many of them to walk away regardless of the cost. Number 11. What started as an assignment to break you became an awakening they never asked for. What started as an assignment to break you became an awakening they never asked for. They came in armored, briefed, certain they were dealing with a problem that needed managing. Everything in the file painted you as a threat. Everything in their training told them to stay detached. But the longer they were near you, the harder it became to maintain that armor, because your presence did not match the file, not even close. Your steadiness under pressure, your refusal to collapse under isolation, your quiet dignity in the face of tactics designed specifically to erode it. None of that was what they expected, and none of it was something their training had prepared them to resist. It started gnawing at them, slowly, through sleepless nights, through small pangs of conscience. They tried to rationalize away, through the slow death of the excuses they had built their participation on. Some began praying again, even those who had not prayed in years. Some started whispering apologies in the dark, words they were too proud or too afraid to speak to your face. Some questioned everything: who they worked for, why this was happening, whether their entire life had been a long string of compromises that led them to this exact moral cliff. You were not just resisting them, you were waking them up. Your existence did not just expose their actions, it exposed their souls. And the system that sent them to diminish you inadvertently used you as the catalyst for a spiritual crisis they will spend years working through. They came to silence a chosen one. They left with a conscience they could not shut off. Number 12. The target was never you. It was always their own conscience. The target was never you. It was always their own conscience. Every briefing, every instruction, every quiet command pointed in your direction. Watch them, isolate them, break them down. But the longer they stayed, the more something inside them came apart. Not you, them. Every act of deception left a residue they could not remove. Every false report made the next one harder to file without feeling the weight of what they were becoming. They thought they were hurting you. The deeper wound was happening to them, eroding their sense of self, stripping away their ability to look in the mirror without flinching. And that is when the truth finally hit them with the full force of something they could no longer outrun. They were never the ones with the power. The operation was not just suppressing your influence, it was testing their humanity, measuring how much of their soul they would sell, and by participating, they were not neutralizing you. They were neutralizing themselves, one compromise at a time. Guilt is patient. It builds like pressure behind a dam, and it does not negotiate, it just waits. That is when leaving stopped being a choice and became survival, not survival from any external threat. Survival from the person they were becoming inside an operation built on lies. The system thought it was using them against you. What it actually did was use you to bring them face to face with everything they had been running from. The operation designed to erase your light ended up illuminating the darkest corners of their own lives. They did not win, they were converted. What we covered tonight is not a list, it is a map of your life drawn from the outside in, from the perspective of every person who was supposed to break you and failed. Every point connects. The refusal to shrink, the moral intelligence, the spiritual perception, the steadiness that turned their assignment into a mirror, the inexplicable protection, the conscience that would not stay quiet. All of it traces back to one truth. You are not an accident. You are not a problem. You are not too much, too deep, too intense, or too real. You are what happens when a soul refuses to let the world define the terms of its existence. You are what happens when someone chooses alignment over approval so many times that the choice becomes their nature. The resistance you have felt from others is not evidence of your inadequacy. It is evidence of your power. The discomfort your presence creates in certain rooms is not proof you do not belong. It is proof that you are operating at a frequency that forces everyone around you to confront what they have been avoiding. You did not just endure, you transformed. The hunted became the catalyst. The target became the teacher. The chosen one became the mirror that made even the agents of darkness see themselves. That is your story. Not a story of suffering, a story of reversal. And it is not finished. If tonight something in this video reached into something you have been trying to name for years, do not let that feeling disappear when this video ends. Share this right now with one person who needs to hear it. Not for this channel, for them. Because somewhere tonight, there is another person sitting in the same quiet you have been sitting in, wondering if anyone else sees what they see, wondering if their depth is a gift or a curse, wondering if their refusal to play small is strength or stubbornness. You sharing this video might be the only confirmation they receive today that they are not too much, that they are not broken, that what they are living is not punishment, it is preparation. Subscribe to Oculus of the Wise, turn on every notification. Leave a comment below and tell me which number tonight hit the hardest. Your words build this community. Your presence here was not accidental. Something in you was ready, something in you recognized the signal and followed it to this exact moment. Honor that, stay rooted, stay sovereign, never apologize for your evolution, and never, not for a single breath, let anyone convince you to be smaller than the truth you carry inside you. God bless you.